All right. Well, welcome, fam, to the Week 8 FFFL recap. I have a familiar face with me this time. We got Zach
Hello.
with us again. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. No
No
one else
problem.
volunteered for it, so I just had to fall to you, man. I'm sorry. Just
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Everyone needs to not be scared though either. It's all right.
oh
Just
yeah, I agree.
jump on the podcast. Allison did it, so everyone can do it. It's
Yeah.
her first year. She knows nothing about it, and she jumped on and did it.
Yep.
So
Tyler the
you
same
guys,
way. Yeah.
Tyler the same way. You guys got this.
Yeah. So it is fun. I hope we make it fun. So
I enjoy it.
yeah, but the good news this time is y'all don't have to learn about either of us because you already know a little bit of how we're connected and whatnot. We won't get into too much.
Well, I do have a surprise for you. They're going to learn one thing about me that they didn't know, and this is just for Andy, but I just had to do this one time.
Oh,
A little celebration smoke.
I wish I had some. That would be nice, but I do not.
I'm sure there's a couple people in here that don't or can't. Like I'm sure Kyle probably cannot. So
Yeah, I'd imagine he's already fucking high up there, anyways, in the sky.
right.
Higher.
He's probably got more adrenaline going than I do from it. Yeah.
Yeah, no shit, man, no shit. But yeah, thanks again for hopping on. I'm looking forward to doing this recap with you, and we'll start off like we always do with the ass whooping of the week. And this week it was me getting my ass spanked, and it was by the widest margin. I think I won by the widest margin last week, and then now this week happens, and I get fucking my ass handed to me by Suckadicka. He scored the highest point total yet of 178 fucking points, man. It was
Couple things. Number one, that's probably the ass whooping of the year.
yeah, yeah.
More than likely. And actually, as I was watching, you got so lucky because you weren't even going to break 100. And Higgins caught that touchdown pretty late, and then it put you at like 111 or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So I was watching. I was like, oh my God, he's getting beat by like 75 points. This is bad. This is bad.
I mean, Derrick Henry went off for 46 points. That's got to be the highest point total yet for a player, maybe, or close to it.
I think Josh Allen had a 45 week.
Yeah, let's say it's close. It's right. Let's just say it's right up there.
I'm pretty sure it's. I'm pretty sure it is.
AJ Brown had like 32 at halftime. He had already 32 points. I mean, that's already an amazing week. If anybody can score over 30, they're like, that's a amazing week. And he already had that at that point. Kirk Cousins added some like, I mean, Kirk Cousins ran like a fucking almost 20-yard run for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was like they were playing for Sam and they wanted to beat my ass. And all my team did was just go out and do some mediocre bullshit. Like literally every single player was from like 11 to 19.
Right. Right. Well, and we have mentioned this multiple times. Multiple of us have mentioned it. I mean, a little bit of credit to Sam too. Again, he took a lot of my players, but how about him having 3 running backs every week that score 20? I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, most weeks he's had 4, right? At least a few of them, he's had 4 of them that go for 20.
Yeah, reason because he had an Eno Benjamin in who got him like I think last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it had like the 4-headed monster at that point. But it kind of shows you what this point per carry.
I just lost you. Oh, there we go. There we go.
But it shows you what that 0.2 per carry also means because in normal league, like Kamara was number 1, CMC was number 2, and I think Henry was like the number 3 running back. After running for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, he was like the number 3 running back in the week in most other leagues. But in our league, he was number 1 because those carries. I mean, he got like 25 to 30 carries or something.
Yeah. Well, not to sit on butt whooping of the week for too long either. But yeah, it's we were talking about it in the text. I like points per carry. I mean, now I don't think it needs to be like a whole point. I like that I think it's 0.2, right? 0.2 a carry. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah. And that's true. It's like it just adds a different layer, and it gives more credence to a Derrick Henry type of guy that gets a heavy workload, and that wears him down. But
absolutely,
he's great, and he's just doing great. But I agree. I don't want to fucking wallow in this ass whooping anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the non-nail biter. Like this is the third week in a row. There's no nail. Now I define it as 15 points or less of a margin. So yes, sure. I kind of made my own parameter around what is a nail biter. But it's like third week in a row we haven't had that, and I don't even think it's that close. I think the closest is like 30 points, 25 points.
Well, so me and you obviously talked before we started this, and I mentioned to you that I was going to say something about it. So I just took it as like the closest battle. So whatever the point difference is, whoever was the closest, and that was me and Andy. But yeah, to your point, I mean, it was 32 points. And then DeQuarius and Bob were second with 39. So, I mean, everybody lost by 30 plus,
Yeah, it was a lot. So, well, I mean, why don't we get into your matchup? Because you faced Andy. Tell me how you were feeling throughout that.
Well, I'll be honest, I was nervous. I mean, he was putting up points. I can't remember who it was. Who was it here that, let me look real fast. Do you still have me on video?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, ETN. He had ETN who got him 30 points.
Yeah.
And I was like nervous about that. But man.
That's true, because that started off the Sunday morning. I forgot. That was the London game. That started off.
Right.
That's right.
So my schedule, everyone's kind of learned that. I woke up and I think a lot of my games were at 4:00 and Sunday night. So when I woke up, I'm pretty sure it was like 80-20. And I was like, oh my God, like this ain't good. And he still had some players to play. But I mean, as Christian McCaffrey kept going, I was like, okay, well, he's going to win this week for me. Like I was telling myself that I just saw it coming. They were doing everything with him. And how about him being the first player in like 20 years to throw, run, and catch a touchdown? Man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was crazy. He actually won me my week in my other league too, because I won like 133 to 108. And then it's one less person on a team. So like our normal, I'd say if you can score 110, like you're probably going to win. You're pretty close, or that's about average.
Right.
Yeah, he won me because he got fucking 35, 39 points, something crazy.
Yeah, he got 39 in our league.
So it's probably more like 33 or 35 in mine, but that's full PPR though, so maybe not. Maybe it was closer to 39 because that was full PPR. But yeah, he had an awesome week, and you're right. He have an ETN. I mean, ETN now with that has that backfield to himself, and JaMycal Hasty isn't really going to do much other than be just a tough. To have.
Well, and that's what I was saying. Like as I was watching the day, I mean, really the only person that didn't do great for me was Baltimore's defense, and they still got me 5 points. So
yeah.
I mean, everyone did pretty decent. I guess Taysom Hill, but I mean, even still, Taysom Hill's, I'm pretty sure he's the third ranked tight end. I mean, obviously we all know he's not a tight end. Well, most of us know that he's not a tight end, but I that's a little cheat that is in the fantasy, so I took advantage of it.
Yeah, not all platforms have it listed.
I still don't know why they do that with him. They did that last year too. He was listed as QB tight end, I think, last year.
Yeah, at some point they had changed him to, and I can't remember if it was last year or year before, but it was because of that same designation, and one platform ended up changing him like halfway through the year where he was no longer a tight end. Which is pretty interesting, but yeah, so y'all were fairly close. And I can understand where you're coming from with that, and then with Kyle and Bob, DeQuarius was just on him, and it's so funny because we made that trade earlier this week, and those are all three players I traded. Yes. They had the best games of their year so far, all on one day.
And good for him. Good for him. Kyle needed a win. He needed that.
And it's funny. I tried to total it out. Like if I didn't make that trade, wouldn't have mattered. I still lost. So I got my ass whooped, so I still lost. So it wouldn't have mattered.
Well, yeah, but would he have won?
I didn't look
I
at
did.
that. Maybe not, but I mean, who knows? Because Josh Allen,
Like I said, it was still a 39-point difference. So maybe he still would have won himself. Maybe.
yeah, but yeah.
Bob
So
had a rough week. I mean, 106 is. I mean, that's in this league. It's noticing that that's not going to be very good. 106 is in this league is not going to be very good.
no, and I think but it's a tough week to judge that because of how many high scores we had. It was just seemed
Right.
like it's feast or famine,
Yep.
this week. But I would still say that if you're hitting that 130 mark, you're probably going to win. I mean, more often than not. But
Right.
yeah, when you're sitting under 120, like that's what's interesting. When you're sitting
It's
at, like where I was at, like that 110 to 120 mark, you're like iffy.
it's close.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
close.
Couple
Yeah.
other games, that we had. Louis, I mean, it's funny. Louis put up a huge week, and he doesn't really get talked about because
I
Sam.
thought Louis was going to win the high points of the week.
Yeah, I know. He crushed it, like 168 points or 167. Beat Tyler by 47 points. I mean, it was crazy. But here's the interesting part about Louis' team. And this is no offense to Louis because he drafted Pollard as the number 3 pick overall. And I remember, again, Louis, no offense, but we all laughed. We're like, Tony Pollard's like going in like the 10th round. Like he's not even like, what was he doing?
Right.
And that man snapped. Foreman, who was an undrafted player, went off for 37 as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really interesting. And that's why I said last week, I think Louis has been the best at picking up players that play well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's picked up guys that were put in the garbage heap by other players, and he said, "Oh, I'll cuddle you. I'll make you feel so welcome on my team," and he's doing well.
Well, I will mention one thing, and to each their own, but great game by Foreman, but I don't see Foreman having a bunch of games like that. And I'm not saying 37. Most running backs aren't having games like that, but
right.
My advice to him would be kind of careful with him, which is why I picked up Chuba Hubbard, because Hubbard is actually the number 1 and Foreman is the number 2. So you should be, I mean, now they're probably going to, yeah. That's how they're listed on the depth chart.
Yeah, but I think that I agree. I think it's more of a split. I feel like Foreman's that first and second guy.
I'm just saying that last year, for those that don't know, I mean, I don't know, I don't remember if Louis has done fantasy football and all this, but Chuba Hubbard did great last year when McCaffrey was out, like great, like real good. So that's why I'm saying, like, be careful because he comes back this week. He was hurt. He had like I forget what it was, but a shoulder, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, good pick. Yes, he's had very good pickups. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's been quick on him. He stole. I think he stole Juju quick, didn't he? He was the. Yeah.
He's on it, man. He is on it. Louis is dedicated.
I wasn't even trying. So truth be told, real fast, I wasn't even trying to drop Juju Smith-Schuster. That was an accident, but I wasn't going to say anything and do the cheating stuff like my brother.
Yeah.
Had to say them.
Drop him. Anyway, moving past that shit.
Yeah.
Last was Allison field goal whooping on Case's Aces by 54 points. Again, she had Kamara went off. I mean, he had his best game of the season far. So that was big time for her. And it's funny, she got 151 points when Devontae Adams did absolute jack squat. Like that was kind of an impressive part of that. So I thought that was crazy. But Waddle and Stevenson had great games as well. And the only thing I would say for Case's Aces is I did not understand why they didn't play Dak Prescott. Why would you play Daniel Jones over Dak Prescott? Because last week, so here's how I look at it. Yeah, I question it because I think you look at last week and you say he didn't have a good week when he came back. He's coming off an injury. He's coming off a broken thumb, so I get it. But last week they didn't need him to throw. That was the thing. Like he didn't have a great game because they literally got up by like 2 or 3 scores and they just ran the ball. They didn't need him to throw, so he didn't have the stats. So you just look at
Right.
the stats, you'll say like, but you got to know like that's your man, like that's your guy, like you're gonna play him even when you've got players that aren't performing. They're your stud. They're eventually going to perform. You're not going to sit them. You're not going to sit a Justin Jefferson because he has 2 or 3 bad weeks in a row. Justin
Right.
Jefferson will always be in your lineup. He's a wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, by the way.
Yeah.
But that's like an analogy for it. So make sure Dak is in your lineup moving forward. I mean, that's your starting quarterback. He always plays. Like that's what it should be. He's always playing unless he's on a bye at this point. I mean, that's just how it rolls.
Yeah.
So, but
I thought the same thing, but I figured that maybe they, have been listening to some talking heads or something, and they heard to maybe not start Daniel Jones. But I wasn't real sure about that myself. But also at the same time, though, Daniel Jones hasn't been terrible.
No, he hasn't.
And it wouldn't have mattered. They got beat by so much that it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Oh, I agree with that. And I think Daniel Jones, you're right, has played well. He's got a good floor, usually with the running line. But Seattle's defense has gotten better over the past few weeks. And so they, like that's where it's also tough. Like Seattle's defense sucked in the beginning, and the past 3 weeks they've been great. Like so I think that's also a challenge. Whereas the Bears pass defense is what they're better at that than they are against the run. Again, I think when you have a stud and you have your guy, you just got to go with them and know that some weeks are going to suck and some weeks are going to be great.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into it, but let's just say Josh Allen didn't have a great week this week.
Correct.
But I ain't mentioning him. Like he is in there every single week, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you start him?
Yeah. But now it wasn't really a heavy injury week, but I do want to touch on some of them. Any injuries that you noted before I get into some of them that I had?
I only wrote down one, and it's Cooper Kupp, obviously. Even the people that this is your first year, you should probably already know he's like the best wide receiver in the NFL, maybe.
Yeah.
Wide receiver for the Rams. And I know they say no structural damage, and he's actually supposed to play this week again.
Yep.
So we'll see. But me and you and Andy and the people that have done this kind of know them ankle injuries can be really, really lingery. So hopefully he's okay. I don't know who has him in our league. I think it's Casey and
Casey, yeah.
Yeah. So, to them, keep playing him if he's playing. I mean, you don't sit him, but hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully that ankle doesn't bother him. But as we all know, those normally can be like,
yeah.
So we'll see. But there were a couple of defensive people, but I don't think that affects a whole bunch. As far as injuries go, I have something later to get to on that. But as far as injuries go,
yeah, I had a few down. I mean, so the one defensive player was Awuzie, who went out last night for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's like their top cornerback.
That's a big loss.
That's a big loss for their defense. I think they'd already, and they got a good defense, but they've been kind of up and down, and then that secondary gets banged up every once in a while too. So I think it's been tough for them. But he might be out for the year with a torn ACL, is what they're talking about. Other injuries I just wanted to note. For the Ravens, they played that Thursday night game, and they got Bateman, who's now like out kind of indefinitely. It almost feels like they're not quite sure what's going on there. So Rashad Bateman's out for a little while. Mark
They
Andrews
said today for sure 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh wow!
They said
I didn't see that. So there you go. I mean, and it's interesting because we're going into week 9. We literally have 6 weeks left of the regular season. So when he comes back, he might be ready for the playoffs, but that'd be the end of the playoffs for our league. And at that point, are you going to play a guy who's just coming off a major injury, who's been injured a lot this year? So he might be one that you just kind of forget about. Mark Andrews should hopefully come back this week, but it might be up in the air. So just a word to the wise for Cases Aces, you might want to look into picking up Isaiah Likely this week on free agency. I mean, no one else is really going to because you're not trusting that. Because if Mark Andrews doesn't sit, then
Well,
it likely doesn't really play as much, and so therefore is not as valuable.
Well, trade or not, I offered them a trade, and if they don't take the trade, they have T.J. Hockenson.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's very true. So but you got to make that judgment call like of that. So that's kind of an interesting point. So if they take the trade, you got to think about what am I going to do? Am I going to play the guy playing Sunday, or am I going to gamble and think that Mark Andrews, who's a top tight end, is going to play on Monday night?
Right. Now, if they take the trade, they'll have Darren Waller.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to come back this week, but who knows?
I know it's been like that for a lot of stuff this year. I feel like, right? And that's probably every year, just feeling it a little bit more. And then another one I'll mention is Gus Edwards, the Gus Bus. He got hurt. He got a hamstring issue, and again, something else that lingers. So they're hurting a little bit, in the Ravens' offense right now. But we'll talk about some trades here shortly that might make them a little bit better. Yeah, get ready for them trades. Speaking of that, one of the reasons that there was a trade in the NFL this week was because Irv Smith Jr., the tight end for the Minnesota Vikings, is now hurt once again, constantly hurt. A guy who has all the athletic profile, like to actually be dominant, but keeps getting hurt. He's now out there saying 8 to 10 weeks. That's the rest of the year for them. I mean, technically not for them because they're playing well. I think they're 7-1 now or 6-1, something like that. But that's why they went and finally, I literally think they said, fuck it. And like, we got to get a tight end in here that's going to be healthy. So they went after a tight end. And then the last one, guys, actually, Mark Ingram got injured as a sprained MCL, is out a few weeks. And to me, what that does is that just helps Kamara get more touches. So for Allison, who has Kamara, that's just.
Or Taysom Hill.
Or Taysom Hill. No, that's actually a really good point. Hey, that's a great point to bring up. Taysom Hill might get some more touches around the goal line, but for me, it doesn't add a player to it, but what it does is it takes those players that are already playing and gives them more touches, which is nice. It's not like Ingram was taking a bunch away, but he still gets a few. And if you can add a couple more to Kamara and you can add one or two more to Taysom Hill, you'll take it because anytime those guys touch it, they could go for a while. So that's just a quick injury update, but. We talked earlier, and I want to get on this. This has been one of the craziest trade deadlines of the NFL that I can remember. And it started last week. Christian McCaffrey got traded. We talked about that. That was the Thursday before last week's game. So Christian McCaffrey was the running back for the Carolina Panthers, is now playing for the 49ers, had that amazing game this past week, which was great to see as well. So he kind of started it off. But I'm going to rattle off some trades. I want to get your thoughts on them. So we mentioned the Ravens offense, but the Ravens just added an amazing player to their defense. They traded a couple of draft picks for Bears linebacker Roquan Smith. So now the linebacker Roquan Smith, who is the obvious number one defensive player on the Bears, is now playing for the Baltimore Ravens at linebacker. What are your thoughts on that?
That's pretty huge. I thought that was a crazy trade. I can't believe the Bears traded him away. And it's funny, quickly, obviously, I watch a lot of this stuff, and it's funny that the Cowboys just traded for the defensive lineman from the Bears. I can't remember his name right now, but
got Robert Quinn.
Robert Quinn, the Eagles. Yeah, the Eagles. No.
It was the Cowboys?
No, it was the Cowboys.
Okay.
It was the Cowboys. They got a defensive tackle. For the life of me, his name is escaping me right now. But anyways, and on the shows I watched Shannon Sharp, and he was mentioning like he doesn't understand why they didn't try to get Roquan Smith if they were trading him away.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense. Like if it was being known that they were shopping him, why didn't they go get him? But that makes a big difference. That was a big pickup for the Ravens.
Amazing linebacker. Another one now. I just talked about Irv Smith going down. So T.J. Hockenson was traded, tight end for the Detroit Lions, was then traded to Minnesota, become their starting tight end there, and that's who you had mentioned in your trade to Cases Aces was you're looking to get T.J. Hockenson and trade them away, Darren Waller and Allen Lazard for it. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, why did you decide to hop on Hockenson now that he's going to Minnesota, or does that make a difference?
No, I mean, truth be told, I like Hawkinson. I have him in both of my other leagues.
Okay.
I'm in 3 leagues, and I have him in both my other leagues. I like him. I think he's a stud, and I love the trade. I mean, I hope I'm not sitting here convincing AC and Sam not to trade him to me, but I mean, it's not like it's going to make or break my team. I honestly think my biggest thing was, yes, to improve my team, but also help them. They're kind of struggling. I was looking at their team, and I mean, yeah, they were putting up points the first few weeks that they should have been winning, but now they've been struggling. Like it's been, they got a good roster. It's just getting the right pieces started and who to bench, and now that we're in bye weeks, everyone's going to stress on that. The bye weeks are huge. So, but the TJ Hawkinson thing I thought was huge, and I can't believe the Lions traded them in the division.
Yeah, that's very rare to actually to do that as well. So I agree. Chase Claypool was actually traded to the Bears for some picks. So the Bears picked up a nice wide receiver piece that I think can definitely help them out. And so if you have, I don't know who has him right now. I thought it was either Louis or Kyle, one of the two maybe. But Chase Claypool, I don't know if it improves his stock or not. I'm going to say no, just based on the fact that the Bears don't throw the ball that much. Technically the Steelers threw the ball more, but the Steelers had more weapons to throw to as well. So, what are your thoughts on that Claypool trade?
It's funny, not your thoughts.
Oh,
Now, I will
I
say,
got a thought in here that hasn't come
I
out yet.
don't think that he's going to be a superstar. Don't get me wrong, but I think him being traded to the Bears with Justin Fields gives him opportunities for the booms.
Yep.
So he can have the weeks. He'll have 2 or 3 weeks within the next 6 to 8 weeks where he'll score probably 20 plus points because he's going to get 2 touchdowns, or he's going to get a bunch of yards because they'll bomb it to him.
Yeah.
He's pretty quick. So
he's a big.
He's
yeah.
big.
So yeah,
So
nice
I actually thought that was a pretty good trade, but I mean, I still think the Bears need. So I mean, the Bears they need a lot. They need a lot right now.
So to be honest, I actually think it helps George Pickens, who's on my team, because now you've taken away a weapon from the Steelers. Where now, and that was actually one of my concerns. To be fully transparent, I actually had Pickens. I basically put some of my waivers in, and Pickens was the one going to go back to free agency. Like I was going to send him back, and literally that trade happened. I went right back in and canceled it, canceled the waiver claim because I'm like, nope, because what that means to me now is there are more targets that can go to Pickens, and it seems like Kenny Pickett has an eye for Pickens, which is good. Except for this past week, he got not shit done, but I didn't play him, so I didn't match. But I think it impacts both teams really well. Like I think it's a good trade all around.
Yeah.
The next one I want to touch on is actually Bradley Chubb, the linebacker / edge rusher, as we call him, for the Denver Broncos, was traded to Miami to help their defense. And in return, they got Chase Edmonds, running back for Miami, going over to Denver. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought that was a pretty good trade for both teams. I think Miami needed a little help defensively, but I think that was just like an additive onto an additive, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think they necessarily needed him, but he's a stud.
Yeah.
That's Bradley Chubb, for those that don't know. And then I think Chase Edmonds going to Denver is pretty good, but now you've got like this onslaught of running backs there. Like you just traded for Latavius Murray. You got Melvin Gordon. I mean,
yeah. It's weird.
And not forget, there's another one too, isn't there? There's a fourth one that's a pretty.
Boone was there, but Boone got hurt.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't think it's funny because I have Chase Edmonds in all my leagues, so I literally picked him up and I just had him as a handcuff for both because most at some point usually gets hurt. So I'm like, okay. And they got and Miami has a great schedule for running backs, and so I thought, well, if Mostert gets hurt, Edmonds gets plugged in, and he'll actually be viable at that point. But
on that trade note, just because you're talking about Mostert and the Miami Dolphins, they also traded for Jeff Wilson.
Yep, that's the next one. So why don't you hop us into that one?
Oh, well, that might be the best trade that I saw was
Okay.
the Dolphins getting Jeff Wilson Jr. Um,
Running back. He was a running back
at
for.
running back. He was a running back for the San Francisco 49ers, and they're clearing the decks because they have Christian McCaffrey. They don't need
Yep.
all these running backs now. So um, I thought that's big, though. I think he may, and don't get me wrong, I have Mostert, and he's had some good weeks. He's done well for me, but I feel like he may go in there and take the job. Maybe, maybe.
Yeah, he could. I think that the guy who is the head coach now for Miami had both of those, Mostert and
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson, when he was at the 49ers as their offensive coordinator. So he's used to
Yeah.
those guys and obviously knows how to use them, which is cool. And the last trade I'm going to touch on, I think it matters not shit, but it is what it is, and we're Colts fans. And so Nyheim Hines was traded to Buffalo for Zach Moss and a pick, and a draft pick. Both of them are running backs. They basically swapped running backs, and we got a pick out of the deal. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I like Naheem Hines a lot, but since we have Jonathan Taylor, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I don't. And Zach Moss he won't do much for us. I mean,
No, I think it's Deion Jackson who made it happen. Right.
yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah,
where it goes. Deion played great, and they looked at it like,
yeah.
you know what? We don't really need this Naeem Hines guy. And so I think that I actually like the trade for the
I,
Colts reason.
I like Naheem Hines. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
and I think Buffalo will do the same thing we did. Okay,
Yeah.
that's why I think it'll be real impactful. You'll see him play, 10 snaps, maybe.
Yeah. So
Maybe.
we'll see.
Now, he might be impactful. He may catch a touchdown or two, but it'll be real hit and miss.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, we don't got a ton of time left, so I want to get into some of these free agents if I can.
Yep.
So I'll start the quarterback. A couple guys I highlighted. I didn't think there was that. I don't think there's that much talent left over there. But if you're looking to stream, as we call a quarterback, so that's just putting a guy in for this week because he's got a good matchup, and you don't have a great quarterback, or your quarterback's on bye. I put Taylor Heineke. I think I mean, it's boom or bust in a sense. You're looking for somebody to get you some.
I don't think so.
No.
I have him wrote down. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think people sleep on him. I don't know. Obviously, I don't work there and know the insides and outs, but I couldn't believe that Washington traded for Carson Wentz because I thought Heineke was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, now, don't get me wrong. He's not Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen,
Right.
Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow type quarterback, but he's good. I think he's good.
He's like a poor man's Brett Favre is what they kind of think about him as. He's got a good arm. He makes some decisions that might not be smart, but he's just not as good as a Brett Favre. So that's only trouble. And the only one I wrote down was Trevor Lawrence, and I don't even like it. I even put a question mark next to it because he really hasn't performed well since the beginning of the year. But he's playing the Raiders, who are terrible against. I mean, shit, they just allowed I don't even know who the fuck was there. It was some other shitty quarterback. Davis Mills did well against them, So if you want another option, that could be Trevor Lawrence there. Running back, I actually didn't see a ton that was there to like maybe start technically this week, but I thought there were some good stashes in there. We had just talked about Jeff Wilson Jr. getting traded to the Miami Dolphins. He's in our free agency pool. Might be a guy that some people want to pick up. Now, the only other one I wrote down, well, I've got a couple written down, but the only one I want to highlight because I think it's under the radar slightly because it has to do with Gus Edwards and his injury status. But Kenyon Drake, like if Gus Edwards can't play this week, Kenyon Drake basically gets all the work, and he's done well with the work that he's gotten. So that could be another. Yeah. Any running backs that you saw on there?
Nope. You mentioned the only one that I even thought about.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. Yeah.
Yeah.
But wide receiver wise, I do think there's talent there. I've got Rondale Moore written down. He's a wide receiver for the Cardinals. I have Josh Palmer written down, wide receiver for the Chargers. I got Devin Duvernay written down. if you got Bateman injured and you don't got another option, I mean, Duvernay is the wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens, especially with the injuries they've had. He's just going to get targets. And even Terrace Marshall, wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, just with CMC gone and then having to do, I mean, he got 9 targets last week. And last one I put is Darnell Mooney. I mean, he just hanging around. I don't know that he's
I lost you again.
Oh, sorry. I got you there, I think. But yeah, I was mentioning Darnell Mooney being potentially somebody that you could go after. Where'd you go, Zach?
I'm here.
Okay. But yeah.
I did go away for a second. Yeah, I lost signal for a second there. Sorry.
Any,
Real quick, I
yeah.
had Rondell wrote down. I got Devin Duvernay wrote down. Anyone that needs wide receiver help, I think Duvernay might be a huge pickup because Bateman is out. And he's shown some flashes. But yeah, as far as wide receivers, that's all I have.
Right on. Well, 2 tight ends. I wrote down Robert Tonyan. I think he's always available. If you need a tight end, I mean, he's a guy for Green Bay. He's going to get targets. They just don't have much to throw to. And then Casey, you might want to look into Isaiah Likely, depending on if you accept the trade or not, or what's going on. But you don't have, just something where if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to count on Andrews to play. Well, it's a Monday night game. If he don't play and you count on him to play, let's just say you ain't got nobody else to play at that point. So you need to pick up Isaiah Likely at tight end. We only got a few more minutes. I want to be able to get in these matchups. So I'm just going to touch on. We had a big trade in our league. I traded Kyle. He traded away Josh Allen and Cordero Patterson, and I traded away a Hall for it. So from my perspective, I know that I gave away more value than what I got. So that's how I kind of view it. But I felt like I had the bench and the availability and the depth to do it, to make my starting squad better. So while I probably got rid of guys that overall made me a deeper team, that's kind of why I did it. But I do feel at the end of the day, like he got better, and it kind of showed this week.
Yeah. I mean, the trade was all right. I didn't mind that. I think you gave away a significant amount of things for him to trade away Josh Allen. And I think he saw the immediate benefits of it. I think, you got to see the benefits of that trade right away.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to have that number 1 quarterback in the NFL. Wasn't that what Josh Allen was, number 1?
Yep. Yeah. So agreed. And he got some talent on the other end. So you're welcome, Kyle. But we got about a minute left here. So let's talk about some of our upcoming matchups. I highlighted 2. So you and I actually play each other this coming week. I did not know that before this started. So that's one I'm highlighting and I'm gunning for. Unfortunately, Mahomes comes back this week, so that fucking sucks. So, but hey, we got Josh Allen versus Mahomes again, so that'll be good. And then I also highlighted Sam and Kai and Tyler's game. So they're both 5-3. So Suckadicka is 5-3, and the Shemmy Dogs are 5-3. Shemmy Dogs are on a little bit of a slide. They're 1-2 in their past 3 games, whereas Suckadicka, Sam, he has won 4 of his past 5. So kind of on different trajectories, but both 5-3. So it's going to be an important matchup there.
No, that was the 2 that I liked. That was, we'll see if I guess looking one matchup I would highlight would be Casey and Samantha